A story from the town I used to live in as a child. The town was consisted with an industrial area separated by about 30-minute drive via a reservoir from the residential area. For the first few years when the industrial area was sparsely occupied and there were light traffic, things were just fine. But as the industrial area grew and the traffic increased at night times too, a problem started to occur. Cars would drive over the bank and into the reservoir, time after time. The curve around the reservoir wasn't even very sharp, and none were found drunk driving either. Those survived the accident would testify that they saw a strange woman on the spot. Indeed, a woman drowned about there in the past, and rumors started running wild among the inhabitants of the town. After a few people perished, the authority put a warning sign and extra street lamps on the spot. Still more people died, and they widened the road. Yet more people died, and they stationed patrol officer on the spot day and night. But the accidents continued, and so did the sightings of the strange woman. Many said they saw a woman beckoning them. Some said the road suddenly disappeared. Others said they heard ominous sound of laughter echoing around. It seemed hopeless, and people downright avoided driving through the spot at night. Until they filled in the reservoir completely. There were no more accidents afterwards. Human beat the freaking water ghost. Ha! In my 16th year, just with any other boys at that age, Hormone was raging in me relentlessly. Long before the time of computers and internet, the only material remotely sexual I could glimpse was some kiss scenes from a film or TV, or a CD magazine circulated amongst classmates. Even that would turn out all wrecked by the time of my turn, as other naughty boys would have torn away the pages of their favorite girl. One day a mate told me about his erotic dream he had the previous night. It was really just a silly dream of a teenage boy, but it was already tremendously exciting for me, so hungry of anything remotely sexual. I asked him how I could also get such a dream. His advice was that I should focus on all the dirty thoughts right before sleep. Desperate enough, I tried exactly that. Night after night, I dreamed of dragons, pigs, ghosts, and even aliens, but not a single beautiful girl ever appeared. I gave up in the end. One Sunday I had 4 basketball matches with friends and came back home exhausted. I could not be bothered washing or eating and just fell onto bed and dozed off. Probably about an hour into my sleep, I experienced sleep paralysis for the first time in my life. I opened my eyes but could not move. Then I saw something. A figure was sitting on my belly. In the egg-shaped face behind the long black hair were no mouth or nose, but only glowing red eyes. It was wearing a white mourning dress as from a traditional horror series. I was terrified, and each second felt like an hour. But after some time, and upon close inspection, I started to notice the female figure underneath the dress. It wasn't half bad, especially the round bulge of the bosom. Even the round face with red eyes started to come across somewhat cute. Sudden surge of lust boosted my courage, and I started to plead in my mind. "Hey, Miss Ghost, could you do something for me? Just once, please?" With that, the ghost's face started taking more shape. The missing mouth and nose appeared, and the eyes, though still somewhat bloodshot. All in all, not ugly at all, but its expression was like, "What's wrong with this boy?" It then started to disappear as if wiped out by eraser. I was desperate. "No, don't go. Just this once, please." But the ghost didn't give a second look at me and disappeared. Since then, I experienced sleep paralysis several more times during my teenage years, but never once a female ghost appeared again. So my conclusion is, raging hormone of a teenager could scare away even a ghost. The town I used to live in as a child was practically a countryside. So my family was all pretty excited when we had a good chance to move into a flat in the first high-rise flat block in the town. Despite some rumor that it was built on a graveyard. Such was anyway not uncommon at the height of building bubble. But things weren't well in the spanking new place. Mom wasn't well from the day one. I can still clearly remember her dark circles coming all the way down to her chin. As for me, I started to see two black shadows of guys roaming all around my home. I was too young to know that wasn't normal, and just observed them half amused. They would sometimes get some fresh air at the balcony, play little games in the living room, stare at my mom sitting right next to her, or quarrel amongst themselves in the kitchen. One day I was coming back from a corner shop. There was nobody home as my parents were still at work and my older brother was out to play football with his friends. But when I looked up at the balcony of my flat, which was easy to recognize because there was my favorite swim ring in gaudy bright colors hanging, there was a man standing. I just assumed my dad must have come home early and excitedly called out, "Daddy!" The figure on the balcony didn't answer to that, but just beckoned me as if telling me to come quicker. I ran back up to find the flat empty. Yet another evening, my parents were out on some occasion. Into the night, brother went to bed first, and I was hanging around by myself. In the prized spot of the living room was a chunky CRT TV, the old-fashioned one before the flat screens. And behind the TV appeared a guy, and told me to hug the TV. Young and foolish, I did as I was told. It was so chunky my arms could hardly wrap around the front side. I looked up at the guy expecting some compliment or approval. Instead, he pushed the TV to my side, and I went under the TV. If you know these old CRT TV, you should also know how heavy they are. Under its sheer weight, I could hardly breathe or scream. Fortunately, the loud noise of it tumbling down woke my brother up, and he ran to my rescue, but it was too heavy even for my brother. I don't remember what happened afterwards. When I got around, I was in the arms of my mom with teary eyes. Yet another day. As usual, I was the first to come home. I turned on the lights in the dark flat, dropped my school bag, and, of course, went straight to turn on the TV. I was watching a cartoon show for God knows how long when I suddenly felt a presence in the kitchen. In the still dark kitchen was Dad. "Daddy, when did you come home?" I said. But Dad, looking down on me, started swearing and shouting like a madman. With ever-intensifying rage, his face turned flaming red and eyes got bloodshot. I was so terrified I could just cry. I was still believing it my dad, so I walked towards him, who was still screaming his head off. Only then I saw another man sitting at the dining table. I didn't know what to do, so I dropped on the floor, cried to exhaustion. When Mom came home, I told her how harshly Dad had scolded me. But Mom said it must have been all but a dream, since Dad wasn't even back from work yet. Finally, years later, Mom told me her experience in the flat. One weekend, I and my brother were already in bed, and Dad was away for his fishing trip. Having a rare moment of peace, Mom was enjoying a long bath. But then somebody knocked on the bathroom door. She first thought one of us needed to pee, but then she realized we never cared about such an etiquette and would have just bursted in. Nevertheless, she opened the door to find nobody there. When she hopped back in the tub, she heard two male voices talking. Look, she's taking a bath." Yeah, all naked." "Oh, shoot, hears." "I think she did already." Then the voices bursted into giggles. My great-grandmother passed away at 100, sadly before I was born, but my parents lived with her till her passing, and I could hear lots of amusing stories about her. She was fearless and never lost her energy. She worked in the field till the day she died, and nothing could faze her under the sky. When she came across a snake on the farming field, for example, she simply snatched it up by the tail and threw it back towards the mountain. Then one morning, great-grandma seemed outraged, bellowing swears. "What kind of delinquents play trick on me, huh? I'll find out whose work this is and beat him down flat." My parents were surprised to see her in this state and asked what was eating her. Apparently the night before, she was woken up by somebody calling, Ma'am, it's time now. Get up." She found a guy clad in a black cloak. Great-grandma just looked at him thinking, what is this crazy man on about? And he repeated, "It's time to go, ma'am. We have a long way to go." "Go? Where to? This is my home and I live here. Where should I go?" Grandma shot back. "Yama, the king of the underworld, is waiting for you. Please get up now." Before the guy could finish the sentence, great-grandma jumped up and slapped across his face. "Yes, I'm the oldest in the village, but I don't take such a prank. Yama's waiting. Are you kidding me? Get lost, you prig, before I cut your balls off and throw them to my dog." She bellowed at him and kept beating him with her back scratcher. The guy was totally unprepared for the attack and could only utter broken words in between screams. "No, ma'am, I'm not a human, but a Reaper." Mentioning Reaper only made Grandma madder, and kept beating until the back scratcher broke into pieces. The guy grabbed the moment of ceasefire and picked up his crushed hat and ran away. My parents couldn't believe what Grandma had to say, but upon checking her room, indeed, the wooden back scratcher was strewn in pieces. Great-grandmother was still mad and went around the village to investigate herself who the delinquent was. Only then she came back home and said, "So, it really was a Reaper. I don't care, I wouldn't move an inch until Yama himself come to take me." She emptied 2 bottles of rice wine and went to bed as usual. A few months passed, and the Reaper visited again. "Ma'am, now that you know I'm indeed a Reaper, shall we go now?" he said, visibly on guard. Grandma picked up a fireplace poker and roared, "You are out of your mind to come back to me. Do you want to get bitten till the iron poker breaks?" The Reaper jumped back out of the room, but insisted, "Ma'am, who wants to die? But it's the natural course that all life must die. Don't be so unreasonable. Come along with me. What kind of person beats a Grim Reaper so?" You want to lure me out by triggering my temper, eh? Having lived almost a century, I've seen it all. If you dare, come in here and fetch me," Grandma said. And that way they argued back and forth until a rooster crowed. The Reaper told her, "Next time, I will certainly take you with me. Prepare yourself for that," and disappeared. Other family members didn't really believe her bragging about suing away Grim Reaper twice. They all just thought she was hallucinating due to her age. But one morning, it was a big holiday, and members of the extended family were gathered together to pay greetings to great-grandma. And they were shocked to find the room looking like a battle had taken place. But Grandma simply said, "No matter," and threw what she was holding in her hand. "None of you believed me, so I snatched up the lacing closer of the Reaper's clock," she said. And indeed, it was a piece of black fabric. Looking at the surprised faces of the family, she carried on explaining what had happened. Previous night, she woke up from hearing some low voice calling her. She didn't even flinch, just grabbed the poker and opened the room door. Outside were clouds of rainbow colors, and a litter decorated with flowers was waiting. The same Reaper stood out and said, "Ma'am, this time really is the day. I even brought this litter specially for you. It will be a comfortable journey." The litter was indeed so beautiful that Grandma momentarily thought to herself that she might jump on. But if she was that weak, it wasn't my great-grandma. "I've already told you twice that I can't go yet. There are still lots for me to do here. Go away," she said and turned around. The Reaper rushed over and held her hand. "I can't let you slip this time. I'll take you by force if I must," he said. only to get beaten mercilessly from her poker with a barrage of swears. But the Reaper, for once, fought back, and the two had a proper tussle. But in the end, the Reaper was kicked out of the room while Grandma ripping the lace off his clock. "Don't you even dream of coming back unless Yama himself comes to visit me. I have lots to do. I have to fertilize the field and harvest grass to feed my cow. Now piss off," she said, and locked her door up. No family member could dispute her story anymore, looking at the torn-off black fabric in front of them. Great-grandma lived a few years more. Then one day, she told her family to prepare for her funeral, and a few days later passed away peacefully in her sleep. Probably this time, Yama might have come himself, after all. I grew up in a countryside village. There was nothing remarkable about it except for the countless stories about the local Dokkaebi. I left the village when I was still young, but who knows, the same Dokkaebi might be still lurking around there. Just as most other Dokkaebis, it was a big-time prankster, and would usually appear on the hill on the way from the neighboring town. This is the story an old uncle of mine experienced. One late night, he was on his way back home from a funeral. People suggested he'd better stay there overnight, as Uncle clearly had a glass too much of drink, but he insisted that his wife should be worried had he not returned. So he was walking over the hill in the drunken man's pace.
"Hey, Grandpa, where are you going?"
Uncle first thought he must be imagining it. Who else could be around at such an hour?
"Hello, Mr. Yo, where are you heading to?"
There's an old saying, if you hear somebody calling you at night, one should not answer it till the fourth call. But the voice sounded so familiar and friendly, Uncle unwittingly answered,
"I'm on my way home." "Ah, I'm on my way home too. Shall I accompany you?"
the stranger said.
Yeah, why not?"
The stranger volunteered to lead the way, and still very much drunken Uncle just followed the man with the friendly voice.
"Roll up your trousers, we are crossing a stream,"
stranger said, and Uncle did as he was told.
"Now roll down your trousers, we are crossing a thorny bush,"
stranger said again, and Uncle did as he was told. And so it went all night long. Then finally,
"Here's my home. Why don't you stay here overnight as the night is deep?"
the stranger said. "Yeah? Well, why not?" Uncle replied. When Uncle got up, it was dawn. "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" A young student found him on his way to school and woke him up. Uncle found himself a total mess. His shirt was missing, trousers all tattered, and his exposed legs were scratched all over. He was stunned. "Why am I here? I crushed at a friend's," Uncle said. The student called in some villagers, and with their help, old Uncle could come back home. He believes he was tricked by the notorious Dokkaebi a big time. It must have dragged him all over the mountain the whole night, telling him to roll up his trousers as they passed thorny bush and roll it back down when crossing the stream, and so on. His misadventure became so famous among villagers that nobody dared to pass over the hill late at night. A story a friend told me, which he said he himself heard from a friend. So, make what you will. There lived an old man who was notorious among his neighbors for being mean and stingy. For all his greed, he seemed to have accumulated certain wealth, but lived by himself. An all-around Mr. Scrooge character. So let's call him Mr. Scrooge here. Why not? The rumor went that he lost his wife and kids from a tragic accident, but nobody was close enough to know the truth. The only friend-ish figure to him was a local real estate dealer. One day our Mr. Scrooge went to visit his office, and from the usual chit-chat with him got to learn that there was a house rumored to be haunted. Of course, nobody wanted the property. Even with the price plummeting, it remained the real estate dealer's headache for months. To his friend's surprise, Mr. Scrooge offered to buy the house. The dealer was reluctant. Considering Mr. Scrooge's character, if things should really go bad with the house, he'd have to deal with Scrooge's temper and complaints. But Mr. Scrooge insisted upon the deal, promising that he was not going to hold him accountable whatever the consequence. Soon the rumor that Mr. Scrooge bought the haunted house was talk of the neighbors. What was he up to? What should happen if the house was really haunted? Regardless, Mr. Scrooge refurbished and redecorated the house, and to everybody's surprise, he started sleeping in that house. He would still spend the day in his own home, but came to his new property to sleep every night. The next-door neighbors reported that they could hear Scrooge yelling and huffing, but nobody dared to ask him straight what was going on. A month passed. Mr. Scrooge turned up at the real estate dealer's office. He claimed the house was haunted no more and would like to put it up for rent. The dealer wasn't sure, but did as was told. Soon a family moved into a house. Everybody in the neighborhood held their breath and waited what should happen now. Nothing. The family seemed to settling well in the new place and living on without an issue. In that house where no owners or tenants had managed to stay put more than a month previously, people could not hold their curiosity anymore and asked Mr. Scrooge what he did in the house. What was all the yelling there? Mr. Scrooge explained that for that 1 month, he walked room to room every night and shouted, "Pay the rent! This house is not for free! Pay up the rent!" He never saw a ghost, nor he believed in such. But since the rumor was rampant the place being haunted, he just carried on with his nightly ritual. And one day, he had a dream in which somebody shouted back at him, saying, "Shut up! This house is mine!" Right from the following day, Mr. Scrooge went room to room, shouting, "This is not your house! I bought it! It's mine!" He even brought the contract of the purchase with him. He waved it around and carried on shouting, "Look at this! Here's my name and signature! Now, pay the rent!" It carried on a few days before he got another dream. The same voice from the earlier dream shouted, "All right, it's yours, not mine!" Mr. Scrooge took it the issue being settled and put the house for rent. Nobody could prove what he said was true or not. All they could tell was they never heard another complaint about a ghost from the family or any other subsequent tenants to the house. I once worked part-time at a cinema. or to be exact, as an outsourced security crew to the cinema. The cinema was a part of a big mall that opened 24/7, so it was impossible to completely close down the space. It had happened occasionally, a homeless or a teenager sneaking into the lobby to sleep on the benches or play around the space, so my job was basically to make sure there was no such trespassers after closing. My routine checkup included every corner of the cinema except for the ladies' room. The protocol dictated that I call out from the outside and wait for any reaction. The physical check-in could only be done by a cleaning lady. So that night too, shortly after the last screening of the day, I went to the ladies' room and called out, "Is anybody in?"
No, there isn't.
A woman replied in clearly very much upbeat tone. Maybe a customer from the last screening, I assumed. I radioed that there was somebody in the ladies' room and would make sure that she come out before I move on with the rest of my routine. It was pretty boring to wait in front of the toilet in otherwise dark hallway. Now, almost half an hour passed, but there was no sign that she should come out anytime soon. Considering her joking tone earlier, she was probably drunk and possibly passed out in there. If it were the men's room, I could just walk in, but for the ladies' room, I could be in trouble if the woman inside should accuse me of sexual assault or so. "Hello? Are you still there?" I called out again, but there was no reply this time. I radioed the situation and they sent a cleaning lady to check in. But she came out with a questioning face. "But there isn't anybody," she said. "Are you sure?" I said. "I am. I checked all the cubicles too." I couldn't believe it and even went into the ladies' room ignoring the protocol for once. And no, there wasn't anybody. But what was it then that replied to me earlier? When I finished that night's shift and laid myself down on bed, I realized something and huffed to myself. Well, at least she didn't lie. I love mountain hiking. I love it all year round for different charm and scene of each season. In muggy summer, I prefer midnight hiking when it's cooler. I would usually start at 10 or 11 at night and plan to finish by 2. Admittedly, it's a rather unusual activity, and I often end up going by myself. Slightly spooky, but to be fair, I prefer it to go on my own pace. Nevertheless, hiking at night does require a bit more preparation. High-performance torch, extra battery, high-calorie snack bar, rain poncho, and a sleeping bag in case I stuck in the mountain overnight. And that'd easily make a 15-kilogram backpack to carry. And yet, every time when I face the pitch dark at the beginning of the trail, I get tense. Though, call me a perv, that's exactly why I find night hiking exciting. That night, I took the trail from Guryong Mountain over to Taemo Mountain. They are not high mountains, but the trail over the ridge reached good 8 kilometers. Overall, it wasn't too rough, making it a good route for a night hiking. I'm also pretty used to the trail, and I could take it light-heartedly. By the time I reached deep in the mountain, it was well past 11. It had showered in the evening, and the air in the forest was thick with wet haze. Normally I would feel energized after the first 10-20 minutes, but probably because I had a long day at work that day, I still felt heavy past 30-minute point. So I took a slow steps, sweating in the humid air. From about 100 meters ahead of me, I heard a scream. I instantly thought it was of a woman, probably about middle-aged. But in the mountain, in in the middle of the night? I stopped short, goosebumps all over, for a good few minutes. Unlike the stuck body, my mind was busy. What was going on? Who was she? Was I to witness a crime scene? A woman kidnapped into the mountain to be murdered? I fumbled out my phone and called the police and explained that I was in Kuryong Mountain and just heard a woman screaming. I didn't see the actual scene, but something terrible might be happening here, I said. I don't know if police thought I was joking or not, but they first asked me what I was doing there at midnight, and then to call them back if I should see anything more concrete, otherwise they would send a patrol in the morning. I was honestly a bit pissed at their lukewarm reaction. No help from them. Then should I help the woman by myself? I could turn back and run away, but should something terrible really happen to the woman, I thought I would never be free of a sense of guilt. So I slowly approached towards the direction where the scream came from. I must have moved about 70 meters or so. I heard it once again, now much closer. I was startled, but soon gathered myself and shouted, "Who's there? Are you all right?" There was no reply. I took further steps towards the direction, and it wasn't on the trail anymore, but to the slope. I shouted if she was okay once again. I was extremely tense. The slope was slippery, and now that I exposed myself, I feared some brute might jump on me from the darkness. I set the torch in all direction mode and maxed up the brightness too. As I slowly looked around, I heard a bustling noise from a bush, and there was standing a water deer, looking right back at me. God, my heart dropped because for a second I thought its eyes were that of a person. And that damn deer cried, just like the scream of a woman I heard. I had no idea what a water deer sounds like, and it sounds just like a female's scream. I might not have been fooled so easily if it were in the daylight, but I tell you, to hear it in the pitch-dark mountain was no joke. That's already more than 5 years ago. I get to hear creepy water deer occasionally, and by now I fully know it's a water deer. But I can't help but to spit a swear under my breath and feel creeped out for the memory of the night. Among the monsters and ghosts in Korean folklore is what was called a loom ghost, as in luminous ghost. Loom ghosts are the spirits of particularly greedy people, the kind who'd let others starve so that they could have one more in their own mouth. As the punishment, they are left forever hungry and deprived in the hell. But not all of them become loom ghosts, only those who dare to escape and get caught. They are turned luminous so that they are clearly visible even in the dark of the hell, and for that merit given the role to guide the condemned souls down to the hell. So, living humans rarely have a reason to encounter a loom ghost, except for on New Year's Day, when they get one day off from their duty. Despite of all the punishment, they are still greedy. They'll sneak into people's homes to warm themselves up and then try on clothes and shoes in the household and just take them when they fit. The people who lost their clothes and shoes to a loom ghost are said to become unlucky the whole year because the loom ghost has taken all of his or her good luck as they stole the clothes or shoes. To fend off these pesky ghosts, people used various tactics. Block the gaps in doors and windows, hide clothes away, wear colorful rainbow shirt because loom ghosts don't like bright colors. The most common practice was to keep shoes inside. Koreans don't wear shoes in the house, and in the traditional houses they used to leave shoes outside. But for the New Year's Day, they would be kept in the room. One more amusing tactic is to hang a fine basket or sifter outside. Loom ghosts are sneaky and curious, but dumb, and can count only up to 2. As they sneak into the house and find a basket or sifter, they would get curious and start counting its holes. But alas, they can only count to 2, and they carry on doing it over and over till the dawn breaks when they have to go back to hell. Loom ghosts aside, there were of course various customs for New Year's Day. All of them basically to fend off the evil and bring in the good luck for the new year. The sound of pounding to make rice cake has the side effect of scaring evils away. Likewise, some people used to burn the fallen hair and nail clippings that they saved over the previous year the night before the New Year's. People didn't throw away hair or nail clippings casually, but that's a whole different thing to explain some other time. They believed the burning smell of hair and nail had power to fend off the evils. These customs are mostly lost in the modern time, and few would even know they existed. They may seem a bit ridiculous to the modern understanding, but the idea behind them, the wish for a happy and healthy new year, is just as earnest and true as in any other time. But just in case, keep your shoes well for this one night. My mom's mother became a shaman in her later years. Of course, she had lots of amusing stories to tell me when I was young. And some of the most interesting ones were about Dokkaebi. According to her, Dokkaebi was a common feature in countryside. Unlike other common ghosts that often favor and thrive in the hustle and bustle of big towns, Dokkaebi seemed to prefer where air is fresh and water is clean. Anyway, my mom's family was one of the best off households in the village, and her father, my grandpa, firmly believed it was all thanks to Dokkaebi. One year, back in the 60s, they had a severe summer drought. Plentiful of water is essential in rice farming, but that summer, farming fields were all parched and cracked everywhere. Everybody sighed and worried if there would be anything to harvest. One night, Grandpa was on his way back home across the parched, dusty field. Somebody called him out of nowhere.
"Hello, Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee."
Grandpa was familiar with Dokkaebi and knew they were harmless as long as one treated them friendly. So he answered to the call. "Who is this?"
"Mr. Lee, I'm starving. Give me something to eat. Something to eat,"
the voice said.
"I don't have anything on me at the moment. But what do you want?"
Grandpa said.
"It's not just for me. Could you give us some boiled beans?"
So Grandpa boiled a bowl full of beans as soon as he went back home and brought it out to the field.
"Hello, I brought you the boiled beans as you asked. Help yourself,"
Grandpa said to the empty space. And then, in the pitch dark, he could not see anything but could feel and hear fast wind brushing and rushing around him from all directions. After the gusts of wind died down, Grandpa checked the bowl.
and it was still full of beans. He wondered, but anyway brought it back home. Only when he checked the bowl under the light, he was surprised to find all the germs of beans gone. A few days later, Grandpa was on the way back home through the usual way. Once again, a voice called him from the dark.
Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee. Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Let me know when you are hungry again, Grandpa said. Then multiple voices said in turn, like a sing-around.
Mr. Lee, do you want water in your rice field? Shall we help you, Mr. Lee?
Do you want water in your rice field? Shall we help you, Mr. Lee?
Shall we help you, Mr. Lee? Grandpa was unsure, but thought he had nothing to lose, so he accepted the offer and showed where his field was. Next morning, he went out to his farming field as usual, and his rice patch was indeed full of water. Rice plants that had been withered revived back too, while neighboring fields that belonged to other villagers were still parched. And it wasn't just that year either. Regardless it was a dry or wet summer, Grandpa's rice patch kept always the ideal water level. It yielded naturally plentiful of high-quality produce, and his rice would be sold out with a premium year by year. All the while, Grandpa became friends with the Dokkaebis, and it became a routine to make small talks in the field at night. Occasionally, his household would wake up with a loud thud right before the dawn to find sometimes a deer that was freshly hunted, other times still alive big fish thrown in his courtyard. Nobody could be sure whom such gifts were from, but Grandpa thought they were Dokkaebi. With all those helps, his family got gradually better and better off. My mom remembers how her father would still occasionally go out to the field all by himself at night. So, I should think it should be true, to a degree. My work usually finishes at midnight. It's a bit far from home too, so I have to drive back and forth. Tonight too, as any night, I gave a lift to my work colleague whose home is in the same direction and was finally on my way home. I have a navigation system that came with a car. I'm still relatively fresh in Seoul, and I find it not always easy to find a way at night, so I turned the navigation on, though it's just the usual route back home.
Turn right.
The navigation said. I guess I was in some sort of mood tonight, and replied to it with, "Oh, right, turn right here."
Accident-prone area. Slow down.
Navigation said the next. "All right, ma'am, as you say," I responded. And then I heard a giggle in a low female voice. Could have been from the navigation, could have been from the back seat. I'm cribbed and annoyed at the same time now. How am I supposed to drive back home tomorrow night? It's a story my friend heard from a senior soldier in the military. I'll call him here Kim for the sake of the story. Kim had a married aunt who ran a 노래방, karaoke bar. The 노래방 occupied the second and a part of the third floor of the building, and the rest of the third floor was the flat for aunt's family, including her little son. During a vacation from the duty, Kim paid a visit to aunt. That afternoon, Aunt had some business to go out and asked Kim to watch over the 노래방. There weren't many customers during the daytime, so the third floor was not opened with all the karaoke machines and lights off. Even Aunt's son, Kim's nephew, wasn't back from school yet, so the third floor was empty. Time was passing 4 p.m. Kim heard some noise of a kid giggling from the third floor. He was sure the third floor was empty, but the laughing sound continued. It sounded like from a kid as little as his nephew and gave him chills for some reason. In the end, he went up to the third floor and was about to open the door to Aunt's flat. The giggle stopped. When he came down to the counter on the second floor, he ran into his nephew just coming back from school.
"Weren't you at home just now?"
Kim asked his nephew just in case. "No, I'm just back from school," nephew said and went up to the flat. About half an hour later, Kim saw his nephew entering the 노래방.
"Hey, when did you go out again?"
Kim asked. "What? I'm just back now. I hung around with friends after school. I'm back," said nephew and went into the client's toilet next to the counter. Kim was a bit baffled. He was a bit drowsy earlier. Did he actually doze off a bit and nephew sneaked out meanwhile? Then he saw his nephew coming down from the third floor.
"Auntie, didn't you go to the toilet here?"
Kim shouted. "What are you saying? I was upstairs all the while. I'm going out to see friends now," nephew said. And as soon as he went out, leaving baffled Kim behind, came out the nephew from the toilet. "I'm gonna have a nap upstairs," said he and went up. Kim fainted at that point. Cheong-sdong was a poet in the early 19th century Joseon dynasty. He disregarded social conventions and authorities of his time, and his sharp satirical works and eccentric behaviors made him almost a legendary figure in his own lifetime. There are many mythical stories that are said to be related to the poet, and one of them involves Dokkaebi. There was an old holy tree at the entry to Cheong-sdong's village in Pyongan province, as often was the case with many villages at the time. But this particular tree was rumored to be taken by a Dokkaebi. This naughty Dokkaebi would scare a passerby or even play a prank on villagers, but people couldn't really do anything much for the fear of Dokkaebi's power. And one night, Cheong-sdong was on his way back from a friend's late night. And then a big burly guy blocked his way and said in a weird voice that sounded like echoing from a cave,
"Oi, Mr. Kim, lend me 100 coins?"
Cheong-sdong was a well-known figure, and every villager knew he was Mr. Cheong, not Kim. But then he remembered Dokkaebis would address any human as Mr. Kim, the most common family name in Korea. Aha, so this guy should be a Dokkaebi. Cheong-sdong happened to have money he borrowed from his rich friend, and fully expecting the guy to be a Dokkaebi, he handed 100 coins to the strange guy. After all, Dokkaebi would always pay back both for the good and bad. The following night, Cheong-sdong was out in his yard to enjoy the moonlight. And then the strange guy suddenly appeared and paid back 100 coins he borrowed and disappeared again. Just as he expected, Dokkaebi didn't fail to pay back. But then he heard how naughty the Dokkaebi had been to other villagers. Borrowing money prank was apparently a favorite of the Dokkaebi, who would normally carry 100 coins on them. When his poor victim failed to land him 100 coins on the spot, Dokkaebi would harass the victim with all sorts of pranks. It was time to pay him back, Cheongstong thought. Following day, he went out to the holy tree at the entry of the village and loudly grumbled. This naughty Dokkaebi is not paying back the money he lent from me. What a punk! Very that night, Dokkaebi appeared at Cheongstong's place again and handed him 100 coins. Dokkaebi is not known for being smart, and this deemed Dokkaebi forgot he had paid back already. This routine continued for days, and with the money, Cheongstong threw parties for his neighbors and helped poor villagers. But then one night, the routine stopped. Dokkaebi didn't come to pay the money back. He must have realized what happened. Cheongstong was worried a bit because Dokkaebi never fails to pay back, for good or bad. Right following day, it already started. Cheongstong's dog was found on the roof of the house. The household and neighbors were baffled and found it ominous, but Cheongstong alone bursted into laughter and said loudly, "Look, people, how smart my dog is! It went up the roof to watch better over the house. No thief would escape his eyes now." His family and neighbors joined his laugh for Cheongstong's carefree attitude. The following day, even weirder thing happened. The sky was blue and sunny, but Cheongstong's house alone was flooded with a torrential shower. His family got all nerves for this inexplicable phenomenon, but Cheongstong took out his fishing rod and nonchalantly set himself in the garden. "Ha ha ha! How thoughtful! Somebody knew I was dying to go for fishing and made a pond of my garden." The Dokkaebi must have got all worked up for Cheongstong's carefree reaction, and the following day, he covered Cheongstong's farming land with the rocks and pebbles. Cheongstong's wife looked almost about to cry, but Cheongstong danced around with the laughs. "This year's harvest is all ruined. What are you so happy about?" wife said. "Don't you see, my dear? With all the rocks, our farmland would stay firm even in the storm. How thoughtful! I was rather worried if the naughty Dokkaebi wouldn't cover the field with dog shit." Following day, on the farming field, the pebbles and rocks were all gone and instead was covered with dog shit. For once, Cheongstong fell on the spot and loudly cried out, "Naughty Dokkaebi ruined my farming field!" He gathered some young burly villagers and went to the holy tree. "I've been putting up with your naughty pranks so far, but you've crossed the line. If you don't leave the holy tree and our village right away, we will force you out!" Cheongstong shouted. But a sudden gust of wind almost made him take a step back, as to say, "F you." "Ha! You think you are stronger than I? I'll show you my power then. I will now make the sun go away," Cheongstong said, and dramatically lifted his arms towards the heaven and chanted some weird spell. And voila! The sun disappeared and the world got dark. Villagers were stunned, but of course, Cheongstong knew it was the day of solar eclipse already. "See? Such is my power! Get away from this village now before I crush you by force!" Cheongstong aggressively growled, and indeed, nobody saw or suffered Dokkaebi's pranks in the village anymore since that day. All the while, Chongstong's farming field was enriched with the manure of dog shit and had a plentiful harvest like never before. I met my uni mates after 2 months long summer vacation. We, of course, drank. And there he told me a story of his body. He told it in a pretty serious manner, so I guess it should be true. Let's call my mate's friend Jinsu for the sake of the story. Jinsu is a pretty solid guy, sensible and easygoing. He recently lost his grandpa, who very much adored Jinsu when he was alive. Recently, Jinsu was going through a hard time with several bad news striking him at the same time. So, one night, he had a couple of shots before bed, even though he usually doesn't like to drink. Probably was his exhaustion or the alcohol. As soon as he lied down, he felt as if he was sucked down to the ground. And then, the next moment, he felt lifted up to the sky again. When he looked around, he was somewhere everything was glowing in a warm white light. And in that light was his late grandpa. He motioned to Jinsu to come closer. When Jinsu did, Grandpa calmly lifted his hands and counted 6 with his fingers. Jinsu was just happy to see his beloved grandpa again and wanted to tell him all the pressing troubles of his. But the moment he opened his mouth, he woke up from the dream. It was already morning. What a weird dream. Grandpa came to see him just in his time of trouble. But why did he show number 6? Could it be? Jinsu didn't even wash himself and ran straight to the corner shop still in his pajamas to buy that week's lottery ticket. 6, 16, 26, 36. He checked every number containing 6, and the rest 2 numbers he chose his birthday and month. After buying the ticket, he realized there was barely enough money left to buy an instant ramen for his breakfast. Well, what's the big deal? When he won the lottery, it'll all be just a memory. So, with a ramen and big hope, he came back to his room, put a pot of water on the stove, and opened a bag of ramen. And inside were 6 soup packets. Grandpa. It's a story of my acquaintance. I'll call her Mijang for the sake of the story. Mijang is a single mom. One day she had an urgent business trip that would take a few days. She left her little son to a friend in the neighborhood. The friend was a follower of somewhat dubious religion, but usually very friendly and got along well with her son too, so looked an ideal babysitter. A few days later, Mijang returned. She picked her son up and cooked a full-blown homemade dinner too to make it up to her son for her few days of absence. "Didn't you miss Mommy, sweet?" Mijang asked at the dinner table. "Of course. I missed you so much, Mommy," son replied. Mijang's smile turned into a cold stare. "Why are you there? What are you doing, my son?" she yelled. Her son got scared of his mom's sudden shift and mumbled tearfully, "Why? What is it, Mommy?" Regardless, Mijang snatched the child by his wrist, dragged him to the kitchen, and started showering him with sea salt and red beans. Now the boy was full on screams and cries, but Mi-jung only huffed and said, "You're playing it hard," and carried on the salt shower.
Alright, I'm gonna get out. Stop, damn it!
The voice from her son was not the boy's voice, but wobbly and glottal like from a stretched recording tape. Soon, what looked like a thick white smoke oozed out of her son's body. It had female features, but was hard to define the age. Her face was distorted and looked nasty. Mi-jung checked the breath of now collapsed and limp child, and determined he was simply asleep. She took him to his bed, and came back to the table to finish her dinner. The ghost was still hanging around, and thought it could scare Mi-jung. It pushed its horrible face right up to Mi-jung's, but Mi-jung looked right back into its eyes, and coldly said, "My son is as nasty as I am. He would never so sweetly say, 'I missed you, Mummy.' Oh, and by the way, he hates aubergines too. He would normally have kicked the table as soon as I brought out the aubergine dish here. Do better, you bitch, if you want to fool me." Her cold and untouchable countenance must have scared the ghost, and it soon ran away. After dinner, Mi-jung called her friend who babysitted her son, because she suspected as much that it had got to do with her. But nobody picked it up. When she went to see her the following day, the house was empty too. Fortunately, her son went back to his normal, delinquent self. No wonder Mi-jung likes to recount what the shaman in her childhood neighborhood used to comment whenever she saw Mi-jung passed by. "That girl was born with the spirit of a tiger." I tend to get sleep paralysis frequently, and a few of them were rather sexual too over the years. Not really pleasant, but at least I kinda know well what it feels like before it happens. One night, I was just about to fall asleep, and felt that familiar, well, call it a prodromal symptom to a sexual sleep paralysis. By now, I don't even bother to fight it back, just pray it pass quickly. But thought to myself, God, I hope it's at least a drop-dead gorgeous-looking guy. Then, suddenly the heavy weight and unpleasant chill lifted from me, and the paralysis broke too. I think the ghost must have felt too self-conscious about his look. Oh well, I'm sorry, Mr. Ghost. The beauty privilege prevails even in death. This post got an equally spooky but funny reply as follows. Well, that ghost knew himself well at least. One night, I too got a sleep paralysis and found a god-awful looking ghost mounting on my chest, about to do something more. I thought, hell, there was no way I would let that ugly thing to have his way with me. I struggled my might to break the paralysis, and as soon as I could move a bit, I grabbed a string of beads that I always keep under my pillow. It's what my granny gave to me because I frequently suffer night terror, and whipped it to that god-awful face.
"Oh, stop it, stop!"
The ghost complained, but "Stop what, you effing ugly monster!" and whipped him further, till he disappeared. My grandma, Mom's mother, was a pretty girl, I hear. Even in her ripe old age, with her big round eyes, small but perfectly formed nose, and little cherry lips, she was known as that pretty granny among her neighbors. Combined with her delicate, dainty stature, she must have been a real little beauty in her time. No wonder Grandpa adored her so much all his life. Anyway, when Grandma was a young mother of 2, that would be my uncle and aunt, she fell asleep next to her children one night, and in her dream appeared a Grim Reaper. He looked the cliché of the traditional Grim Reaper, in a traditional black hat and gentleman's cloak. His face was grey and devoid of any emotion.
Get up. Time to go,
he said, looking down on Grandma. Grandma was then barely 30 years young and couldn't believe it was already her time. But before she knew it, she found herself already mindlessly following the Grim Reaper to somewhere. She thought of her little kids. How sad would they be without her?
Excuse me, I don't mind dying, but what about my little children? Who's going to take care of them without me?
Grandma gently and cautiously talked to the Reaper. As I knew her well, she didn't have a fighter's bone in her, and she never raised her voice or lost temper. I can just picture how she would have kept her calm, lady's countenance even in that situation.
Everyone has their excuse. No one would die if I listened to them all,
Reaper said bluntly.
It's really because of my babies. Couldn't you give me at least a few years of time till they grow up a little?
I'm just doing my job according to the order I got.
Grandma couldn't disturb him more and kept following him. Meanwhile, they reached a field full of flowers, so beautiful, and the air itself was perfumed by the fantastical flowers all around. Grandma forgot her worries for a moment, busy looking around the view. But past that field of flowers was a barren land, and at the end of it was a river. Grandma felt there was no return once crossed that river.
Mr. Reaper, I really can't stop worrying about my babies. The youngest hasn't even weaned yet. I don't think I can go. No, I won't go.
Oh, for heaven's sake, just come!
Reaper turned around and shouted with irritation.
Do you think I want to do this? It's just my job. God, what's so good about life? You die once anyway, so just let it go.
But for once, it wasn't a fight she could lose. Grandma kept begging.
I beg you, just a few years more till my babies can take care of themselves. Then I will follow you without a word. Please, let me live this time. I beg you.
Oh, shut up, shut up. I've had enough. Every single one begs, nags, argues, and whatnot. Do you have any idea how hard my job is? But if I don't do it, I get reprimanded. It's not I want to do this, but it's my duty. Put yourself in my shoes.
Grandma didn't have a heart to argue with a poor Reaper, but couldn't just depart like this either. She turned around and attempted to run away, but was caught in no time. Now pulled and dragged by her wrist through the dusty ground, she still tried to dig her feet to the ground and grabbed on rocks. After such a struggle, the Reaper threw Grandma's hand away one moment and shouted,
Ah! Why do I have to do this? You damn old thing! Go and live then! Live as long as you like! At first he looked gentle and I thought he'd go smooth for once. But heck no! Just another stubborn nagging bitch! Go and live as long as you wither like a dried prune!
He then jumped on the boat by himself and sailed away. And Grandma woke up from the dream.
What a dream! How vivid that was!
Grandma thought to herself and sighed of relief. She then realized her wrist ached. She found her wrist red and swollen as if somebody grabbed on it hard, and by the following morning it turned into a black and blue handprint. It wasn't just a dream after all then. The Grim Reaper didn't return until her children grew up, but unlike the Reaper's curse that she should live till she wither like a dried prune, Grandma passed away before she turned 70. I think losing her oldest son untimely did its part.